root system, whether it is differentiated into nodes and internodes, means root system, it is not differentiated into nodes and internodes. That means in root system, it is not differentiated into, nodes and internodes. It is not differentiated into nodes and internodes. That means whether the stem is differentiated into nodes and internodes, means yes, the stem is differentiated into nodes and internodes, but whereas the root system, it is not differentiated into nodes and internodes. That means in this root system, whether axillary buds, that is nothing but normal buds, are present or absent. In this normal buds, they are absent. What are called as normal buds? Normal buds, that is nothing but axillary buds. Normal buds, that is nothing but auxiliary buds, that is nothing but which buds means terminal buds. That is nothing but which buds? Terminal buds. That means in normal buds in root system is completely absent. That means it does not shows auxiliary buds. That means it does not shows terminal buds. And can you tell me whether this root system, whether it is growing positively phototropic or positively geotropic, means it grows always positively geotropic. It grows always positively geotropic. What is meant by geo means soil, tropic means movement. The movement of root towards the soil, that is nothing but positively geotropic. Can we call this one as negatively phototropic? Means yes, it is called as negatively phototropic also. It also grows negatively phototropic. It also grows into negatively phototropic. That means root system always grows towards the soil. That's why it is called as positively geotropic, and as it is also called as negatively phototropic. Tell me, all plants, whether the roots, whether they are growing positively geotropic and negatively phototropic, means that is one of the wrong answer. Why? Because in plants namely known as Rhizophora and Avicennia. In plants namely known as which plants? Those are nothing but Rhizophora and Avicennia. Rhizophora and Avicennia. So these plants, that is nothing but Rhizophora and Avicennia, these plants, they shows nothing but nematophores. Those modification, that is nothing but nematophores. That means in Rhizophora and Avicennia, it shows root modification, that is nothing but nematophores. Nematophores are also called as respiratory roots. Nematophores are also called as respiratory roots, are also called as breathing roots, are also called as breathing roots, are also called as which roots? Breathing roots. In this Rhizophora and Avicennia, it shows one root, that is nothing but nematophores. This nematophores, whether they are growing positively geotropic or positively phototropic, means it is always growing positively phototropic. In this, nematophores always grows positively phototropic, and negatively geotropic. And negatively, which one here it is called as geotropic. That means in all plants, root always they are not growing towards the soil. In some plants like Rhizophora and Avicennia, they shows one root modification, that is nothing but nematophores. These nematophores are also called as respiratory roots, are also called as breathing roots, and these nematophores, they are always growing towards positively phototropic and negatively geotropic. This is the another characteristic feature belongs to the root system. And whereas here in this, the apices of the root, the apices of the root is covered or protected by. Apice of the root is covered or protected by. Covered or protected by a thimble-like structure. Covered or protected by a thimble-like structure known as root cap, namely known as root cap. So root cap, it always covers the root apex, always protects the root apex. That it is nothing but a root cap. And this root cap, in this root cap, whether it is loosely tied fixed, loosely tied, or whether it is tightly tied, means whether it is undergoing regeneration once the root cap is removed. Yes, it is undergoing regeneration if this root cap is degenerated. This root cap is degenerated, again this root cap is again regenerated. Is that clear? And whereas now we are going to how many types of root systems can be seen in plants. In plants they are showing 3 types of root systems. In plants they are showing how many types of root systems? 3 types of root systems. What are the 3 types of root systems? One, that is tap root system. One, it is nothing but which root system? Tap root system. And the second one, it is nothing but a fibrous root system. And the second one, that is nothing but a fibrous root system. And the second one, that is nothing but which root system? Means that it is nothing but a fibrous root system. And the third type of root system, it is nothing but a adventitious root system. Adventitious root system. So altogether how many types of root systems can be seen? Means 3 types of root systems can be seen. Of that one type of root system itself, it is nothing but tap root system, and the second type of root system itself, it is nothing but fibrous root system, and the third type of root system itself, it is nothing but adventitious root system. Now this tap root system can be seen either in dicots or in monocots, means it can be seen in dicots. The taproot system, it can be seen in only dicots. But whereas fibrous root system can be seen in monocots. Fibrous root system can be seen in only monocots. But whereas adventitious root system, whether it is seen in dicots or it can be seen in monocots, means it can be seen in either. That is nothing but it shows the fibrous root system, the adventitious root system, it can be seen in dicots and as well as monocots. That means this adventitious root system, it can be seen in dicots and as well as monocots. Is that clear? Now we are going to discuss about this taproot system. So from this taproot system, the germinating seed, this is nothing but take this one as example as a germinating seed. Germinating seed contains embryonal axis. This embryonal axis, below which it shows radicle, and above the embryonal axis it shows plumule. So from this radicle, which one is developing frame? Means from this radicle, primary root or tap root, it is developing. From this radicle, which root is developing? Means primary root, or it is also called as tap root is developing. From this primary root or tap root, which roots are developing? Means that is nothing but secondary roots and tertiary roots are developing. From this primary root or tap root, which roots are developing? Means secondary roots and as well as these are nothing but secondary roots, or these are nothing but tertiary roots. These are nothing but which roots? Tertiary roots. That means from the primary root or tap root, secondary roots and tertiary roots they are originating. Can we call these secondary roots and tertiary roots, can we call them as lateral roots? Means yes, they are called as lateral roots. They are called as which roots? Lateral roots. They are called as lateral roots. Now here, whether these lateral roots, whether they are unicellular or multicellular. These lateral roots, they are always unicellular. These lateral roots, they are always unicellular. That means whether it is a correct option, means it is the wrong option. That is nothing but which one? Means it is multicellular. That means here the lateral roots, they are not unicellular. Which one is unicellular? Means the root hairs are unicellular, whereas the lateral roots, they are multicellular. Whether they are developing endogenously or exogenously, they are developing endogenously. They are developing which one, amma? Endogenously. Why here it is called as endogenously? Why? Because here the roots, they are originating from the inner side of the root. They are originating from the pericycle, cells of the pericycle. That means they are originating from the cells of pericycle opposite to the protoxylem. Opposite to the protoxylem. This means endogenous means they are developing from inner side of the TS, inner side of into the TS of monocot root and TS of dicot root. From the inner side of TS of monocot root or TS of dicot root means from they are developing from which cells means they are developing from pericycle. They are developing from which cells means they are developing from pericycle. That means they are developing from which cells of pericycle? They are developing from the cells of pericycle opposite to the protoxylem vessels. They are developing from the cells of pericycle, opposite to the protoxylem vessels. Opposite to the protoxylem vessels. So that's why it is called as endogenous one. Once again I am explaining here. See here, these lateral roots, whether they are multicellular or unicellular, that itself it is nothing but multicellular. Whether they are exogenous or endogenous, they are nothing but endogenous. That means they are developing from the inner side of the root. They are developing from which cells of the root? That means they are developing from the cells of the pericycle. Which cells of the pericycle means the cells of the pericycle which is exactly opposite to the protoxylem vessels. And whereas from these lateral roots they are arranged in which manner? These lateral roots they are arranged in which manner means these lateral roots they are arranged in acropetal arrangement. They are arranged in acropetal manner. They are arranged in which manner means acropetal manner. What is meant by acropetal manner of arrangement of lateral roots means these are nothing but the older lateral roots. These are nothing but which roots here? Older lateral roots which are present towards the root base region now. That means this region it is nothing but a root base, and this region it is nothing but root apex region. That means older lateral roots are present towards root base, and whereas younger lateral roots are present towards root apex. This type of arrangement itself it is nothing but acropetal arrangement. What is meant by acropetal arrangement? Older lateral roots are present towards root base and younger lateral roots are present towards root apex. This type of arrangement itself it is nothing but acropetal arrangement, or they are arranged in acropetal manner. And from these lateral roots, which roots are arising means from these lateral roots rootlets and root hairs are developing. Rootlets and which one amma? Root hairs are developing. From these lateral roots which one are developing? Again means from these lateral roots rootlets and root hairs they are originating. And this, what is the function of the root hairs? Can you tell me root hair whether it is one of the root hair, whether it is one of the unicellular structure or multicellular structure? That means root hair it is one of the unicellular structure. Root hair it is one of the, which structure it is called as? Unicellular structure. That means these root hairs whether they are developing exogenously or endogenously. It is developing exogenously. It is developing which one amma? Exogenously. Can you tell me what is the difference between lateral roots and root hairs means? Lateral roots are multicellular, root hairs are unicellular. Lateral roots are developing endogenously, root hairs are developing exogenously. In which plants? In mesophytes and as well as in xerophytes, whether these root hairs, which one shows, which one it is one of the ephemeral and which one it is one of the perennial. That means root hairs in which plants they are ephemerals, in which plants they are perennials. In mesophytes they are, in mesophytes they are ephemerals. In mesophytes they are ephemerals. What is meant by ephemeral? It shows shorter lifespan, it shows shorter life period. After that life period, these root hairs, they are undergoing degeneration and the new root hairs are developing. But whereas these root hairs in xerophytes, whether they are acting, whether here they are also called as ephemerals or whether they are called as perennials. So in this xerophytes they are called as perennials. In the xerophytes they are called as which one, Amma? Perennials. That means here the lifespan is more in xerophytes compared with root hairs. When it is compared with root hairs, when it is compared with mesophytes and xerophytes, where it is called as ephemeral, which one is called as perennial means root hairs are ephemerals in mesophytes, root hairs are perennials in xerophytes. Can you tell me which water is absorbed by the root hair? Root hairs always observe capillary water. Mostly root hair observes which water means capillary water. Mostly root hair observes which water? Capillary water. So this is, and can you tell me which one is called as taproot system? Taproot system is equal to primary root or it is also called as taproot plus lateral roots. Which one are called as lateral roots means secondary roots and tertiary roots. Secondary roots and tertiary roots plus rootlets and root hairs. Now see, listen here. Taproot system, it includes primary root or taproot plus lateral roots, none other than secondary roots or tertiary roots plus rootlets and root hairs. So altogether this type of system, it is nothing but taproot system. Altogether this type of root system itself, it is nothing but taproot system. In this taproot system, here this primary root or taproot, that is nothing but which root, Amma? Taproot, primary root or taproot. In this taproot system, primary root or taproot, whether it is one of the ephemeral or perennial means it is one of the perennial. In which plants? In dicot plants. In which plants means in dicot plants, the primary root or taproot, it is one of the perennial. So this indicates about the taproot system. Next goes to fibrous roots. These fibrous roots are present in monocots. And in this fibrous root system, for example, think this one is the germinating seed of monocotyledons. It contains embryonal axis which contains radicle and plumule. Think this one is the germinating seed of monocotyledons, where the embryonal axis shows radicle and as well as plumule. In this fibrous root system, which can be seen in monocots, what happens means from the radicle, primary root is developing here. From the radicle, which root is developing here? Primary root is developing here. But whereas in the monocots, whether this primary root, whether it is one of the ephemeral or perennial means it is one of the ephemeral. So this primary root, it is one of the ephemeral. So what is meant by ephemeral means where it shows shorter lifespan. Soon after formation, it undergoes degeneration. It undergoes degeneration. So that's why here the primary root in monocot, it is one of the ephemeral, but whereas in dicots, the primary root, whether it is one of the ephemeral or perennial, means it is one of the perennial only. But whereas in monocots, here the primary root, as it is short-lived, so it is called as ephemeral. And whereas after the degeneration of the radical or after the degeneration of the primary root, what happens means from the base of the stem, what happens from the base of the stem, a cluster of numerous identical slender fibrous roots are developing. So from the base of the stem, which roots are developing means cluster and slender identical fibrous roots are developing. Cluster and slender and identical fibrous roots are developing from the base of the stem. Once again see here, this is nothing but the monocot germinating seed, where the embryo shows radical and plumule. From the radical, initially primary root is developing. That primary root, whether it is ephemeral or perennial, that is nothing but ephemeral. But whereas in dicots, it is one of the perennial. After the degeneration of the radical or after the degeneration of the primary root, immediately a cluster of numerous slender identical fibrous roots are developing. So that means from this each fibrous root, lateral roots are developing. From each fibrous root, lateral roots are developing. From these lateral roots, rootlets and root hairs are developing. Rootlets and root hairs are developing. Rootlets and root hairs are developing. And which one is called as fibrous root system means the fibrous root system which includes that is nothing but a fibrous root, that is nothing but fibrous roots, that is nothing but fibrous roots plus lateral roots plus rootlets and root hairs, altogether it is called as a fibrous root system. Which one is called as fibrous root system means it is a combination of fibrous roots, lateral roots, rootlets and root hairs. Altogether it is called as fibrous root system, which can be seen in monocots. Once again I am explaining, listen carefully. Fibrous root system is present in monocots. In monocots, this is nothing but the germinating seed of monocotyledons. You think like that. From this it shows radical and plumule. From the radical, initially primary root is developing. That primary root, it is one of the ephemeral. After the degeneration of the primary root, from the base of the stem, a cluster of slender, numerous, identical fibrous roots are developing. From that fibrous roots, lateral roots are developing. From these lateral roots, rootlets and root hairs are also developing. These fibrous roots, lateral roots and rootlets and root hairs completely called it as fibrous root system. So we completed this fibrous root system now. And now we are moving to adventitious root system. Adventitious root system. Taproot system is present in dicots. Fibrous root system is present in monocots. Adventitious root system is present in dicots and monocots also. Present in dicots and monocots also. Now, what is meant by adventitious root system? What is the definition of the adventitious root system? That means roots which are developing from any part of the plant other than from the radical. That type of root system itself, it is nothing but adventitious root system. Once again I am explaining what is meant by adventitious root system. A root system which develops from any part of the plant other than from the radical. That type of root system itself, it is nothing but adventitious root system. That means this adventitious root system can be seen in which plants means example 1, that is nothing but monstera. Example 1, that is nothing but monstera. Example 2, that is nothing but ficus bengalensis. Ficus bengalensis. So in these two examples, namely known as monstera and namely known as ficus bengalensis, it shows adventitious root system. Adventitious root system. What is meant by adventitious root system? Adventitious root system is a root system which develops from any part of the plant other than from the radical. That type of root system is nothing but adventitious root system, which can be seen in dicots and monocots. What are the examples for this adventitious root system means? Initially in your textbook they given, here it has one, it is monstera, and another one it is ficus bengalensis. Ficus bengalensis. So this is about the adventitious root system. One more thing here in assertion and reason. Here assertion. All fibrous roots are called as adventitious roots. What I am saying here? All fibrous roots are called as adventitious roots. What is the reason means? What is the reason means? All adventitious roots are not called as fibrous roots. All adventitious roots are not called as not called as fibrous roots, or not called as fibrous roots. In this assertion, that is nothing but all fibrous roots are called as adventitious roots, but whereas all reason, that is nothing but all adventitious roots are not called as fibrous roots. Can you tell me which option is correct here? That is nothing but first option is correct, whether it is A and R are correct, R is correct explanation for A, or A and R are correct, R is not correct explanation for A, means that is nothing but the second option, that is A is correct, R is correct, R is not correct explanation for A. So this is about the assertion and reason. What is that answer? A is right, R is right, but R is not correct explanation for A. This we completes this adventitious root system.